Holy Concordance. I'm going to talk about major and minor chords are the same thing, and you're going to realize very soon, according similar to that there's no such thing as evil. This is a reconstitution of good. We're going to talk about Zatanism. Okay, and the Book of Job, where the original mentioning in human history of the notion of Satan comes from. And he was a servant. God called his troop together, and among them was the Zatan. That's how you should pronounce it, the Zatan, something like that, something that isn't a Zaytun or something like that, so something that isn't the actual pronunciation, because when you utter that word it has an effect. You don't want to have that effect, believe me. So God called all his angels and peoples and everything that he had under his power together, and the Zatan was one of them. And he said, have you seen Job, my good law-abiding? See, Job was a really religious man, kind of like Pope Francis or something like that, but he didn't really understand the essence of theology or the practical application of theology, and they kind of just semblantly and pseudoistically kind of have these faiths and these practices and these teachings, and they're not actually what God wants. And that's the test of the Zatan was the test, the actual sincerity and the actual true revelation of their creed or their religions. Because Job was someone who pretended to practice religion, went to church every week and kind of thing, and was really wealthy, but he didn't know or care about religion enough. And the Zatan tested his ass. And I'll tell you what the Zatan is. The Zatan the Zatani is a collection of human minds. People like Stephen Fry's, I like Stephen Fry's, okay, but people who took their intelligence and used their intelligence to challenge God or deny God. So they took what was a holy gift and they used it in an unholy application, and they are the Zatanis. So God keeps all that. He doesn't put anything to waste, or nothing is put to waste, and he keeps it all bottled up, and he uses it and he sets it back on your ass to see just how holy thou art, or to see how you deal with the scrutiny of your own rationality. And the Book of Job contains the most scrutinous and explicit arguments for and against religion. Like, there's nothing more blasphemous than I've ever read. I haven't read it, actually, it was too much to read, but it's nothing to browse even. It was just such intense literature of like arguments against God contained in the Bible and the Book of Job's. I think that's called the Apocryphy, the extended wisdom literature of the Torah, because it's such a good story that it kind of has to be included. God kind of shows up at the end. I'll just give it ahead there. The thing about Satanism is it's practiced a lot in America at the moment. It's big time all over the world. It's like the New World Creed. Even the Pope, I think, is in on this stuff. That's Satanism, and it's a reality because it has an effect. And like hitting yourself in the face with a hammer has an effect. It just like doesn't really mean that it's something special or something to be done often. It's just they got mocked in Miami because of my QBL turned everything upside down about Satanism, because there's so many churches for Satanism or Luciferianism or something like that. They're not. There's two separate things altogether as well. There's no such thing as evil, kids. D.evil is a spoonful of vinegar. Devil, the evil. There's no such thing as evil. There's only good and a lack thereof. It's like light. It's only good and a lack thereof. But yeah, they got mocked because it was like, hey Tom, you're gonna have to go invent a new religion now, because I busted it all open and changed it all. So anyway, the convenience of Satanism is the Zatan is a tester, a very legitimate and real influence in this world, as you'll come to know in the future if you're still around. A very real tester and teacher of your sincerities, and it's a very easy way to fail in these sincerities by calling on the Zatan and doing something really stupid, saying like worshipping it as a false idol, and you're instantly condemned. So Satanism is a really quick shortcut to self-condemning yourself, and people like to be cut off from God and self-condemned because you don't have to deal with the grump and the bother of it all. You just condemn yourself and remain cut off and stay cut off, like calcification, just cut myself off as much as possible. So they actually deal in self-condemning because it has an effect. And what kind of effect? Like, the more self-condemned they are, the more unforgiven they are, and the more eternalized they are in what's demonstrable onto them in this world, which is the realm of knowledge. and the realm of the starry night sky. So they all fight over the starry night sky, and they all want stars instead of, no more, we won't be counting dollars, we'll be counting stars. And they're fighting over stars loads. Cause of COVID, you've all got war of the world blues. You've all got war of the world sickness, because they left their stars. They went to a different star system. They all got a flu and died. You've all been cut off by your stars, by Noel Vanderberg, the Rockefellers, Rothschild. Swiss people are involved with them. They have lots of friends in the Swiss Alps and all these kind of gypsies. But anyway, the convenience of being one of these kind of merciless, rotten businessmen is, if you, other than self-condemning and keeping yourself cut off and doing whatever you want to do, is Satanism will destroy nearly you and everybody around you, or particularly everybody around you. And if you're lonely, then you get a dog, like in Wall Street, because that's what Satanism does. And it's convenient for some people to have their friends and family and everybody around them being absolutely destroyed and reduced and plummeted into destruction, like what happened to Job. So they do this, and everybody around, those are businessmen and all, get destroyed, and they're all practicing it. So everybody's getting destroyed, and they're all ruining themselves and going downhill big time. So it's a method of conveniently and quickly and cleanly self-condemning yourself, is to call on the Satan and do something like hurt a child, or do something like praise it even. It's failing the exact test it's set out by Satanism, and I just can't believe that nobody's actually read Job. All these Deluminatic worshippers and all these people like praying in front of big statues of, big massive metal statues of owls and all this, and that's, worshipping false engraven images and all this kind of thing mixed up. Engraven images has a lot more to do with literature and books and stuff like that. It's one of my favourites. Actually, my favourite of the commandments is adulterous. That's a really great one, because it doesn't mean having sex with other people's wives and stuff. That's a sin in itself. That's coveting your neighbour's wife. Being adulterous, it means being lying. It means being grown up. It means like lying to your kid, or lying to each other, or using the rationality that you developed in your adulthood for silly little childish things. So that's what adultery is. And like, you are lying to your wife. If you cheat on your wife, you're being silly and childish and petty, and you're thinking, the real sin about that is thinking that you're going to get away with it, because then it implies that God is infallible, and then you're kind of making a very holy implicit sin by saying that God wouldn't know that you're lying or cheating or doing something, and that's why adultery is a sin. But churches, Zatanism, Satanism, self-condemning methods. Yeah, I think I've kind of covered that all. I think I got that kind of summed up shortly and sweetly. They're all trying to condemn themselves, because condemning themselves has an affectation. Oh yeah, I forgot. The most condemned you are. So if you completely and utterly self-condemn yourself, you're eternalized in a way, and that eternalized manner is you're completely unforgiven. There was a Norwegian friar who did some very messed up things up in the Norwegian mountains in something that looked like a church, and he's like the most unforgivable man in the world, and they all worship him like poxy fly. They all worship him like the devil or something. They have all these stupid notions and names and all, but he was just like a very unforgivable man, and he won't be forgiven by God for a very, very long time until he learns his lesson by studying the living. And this is why they study the living to reach their completion. That's why they're hanging around with unfinished business, and that's why Rivers Cuomo kind of hangs around with his doppelganger, and why his doppelganger is reading Nietzsche books and stuff all the time to keep him entertained. I think the current River Cuomo is a little more in touch in keeping Nietzsche as his company more so than keeping Rivers Cuomo, who's probably going to be hanging out with pot-smoking young hippie guitarists all over the world. So yeah, Satanism, just because it has an affectation and just because it can be demonstrated, they really jump on board it and think it's something in itself or something special or something, but it's really not, just because it has an explicit reaction or explicit affectation. Like, these kind of things are very real, and just through Christianity we've all had the grace and mercy of Christ, so these things have been completely concealed from us, but that's slowly fading away now, twilight time, and these things are very real again, and you're going to have to learn to deal with these things for yourself, because Jesus isn't going to be there to do them for you. Someone like a teacher or someone like that, you have to find somebody somewhere who's going to be able to tell you about the actuality of an ideal theology, which is close enough to something like Islam, but Islam is not the way. Islam is the law for one man, not the law for many men. Islam is like the law for like maybe like 9 or 10 knights of super Islam. That's why they're all like super powered Islamic knights and Tiferethi and mega hitmen. But it's not good for everybody study Islam. We needed Islam at a time when we were traveling over the void, but we're beyond that point now, and it's still very venerable and still very respectable creed. But it's not true creed. There's never really true creed because we progress and it changes as we progress. We're moving from a point towards absolute understanding at the moment, and to super Tiferethian religion is close to touching a lot of things, but it's not. It won't go towards absolute understanding. And that's and until you listen to me, to be honest, it is going to be until you listen to me, churches are going to cause COVID, rosary beads are going to cause insanity, and all these things that you don't understand that you're practicing all the time are going to have very negative and Zatanism affectations about them. So yeah, this is my mercy, trying to teach YouTube land or teach somebody, because, I don't know, God told me to teach, and I just laughed. It's like I could smack somebody in a hammer with a face these days and they wouldn't listen to me. And Jeremiah said the same. They won't listen to me. Moses said the same. They won't listen to me. But yeah, I've got to make an effort, I suppose. So yeah, this is my effort. So if any questions at all about theology or world religion or metaphysics or anything, then yeah, comment, like, and subscribe. Yeah, and I hope this has been educational. I'm only learning, so please be gentle with me. This is fun too.